Cool. Okay. I don't know if we're live or not, but I'm just going to start talking. Hello. Welcome to a new webinar organized by PRLab, this time about how to pivot communications during COVID-19. It's a pleasure for me and an honor to have you all joining and have this amazing lineup of speakers joining us today. Before I introduce themselves, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Matias. I'm the founder of PRLab. PRLab is a PR agency based in Amsterdam, specialized in the tech industry, in particular in startups and scale-ups. We organized a webinar a few weeks ago about crisis communications and how to do PR and communications in times of crisis. And it was very well received. We got very good feedback and people asked for more. So here we are organizing a second one. This time, not so much about how to do crisis PR, but more about what prominent and leading companies like the ones that we have joining today are doing to adjust their practices to what's happening at the moment. And it's quite uncertain, as we all know. So there's no golden rule. But we're hoping that this webinar will give you some tools and it's going to be inspiring enough for you guys to, just, I don't know, get some motivation and learn some tips and tricks on how to navigate these difficult times. So before, before the speakers introduce themselves, I would like to encourage you all to please use the chat in the YouTube link because basically we're going to get to your questions in a few minutes. So please ask questions, add comments, engage with each other. That's why the chat is there. Make use of it. And yeah, that's it. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? I'm here with Joliene, Diogo, Luke, and Ferdinand. Welcome, guys. It's an honor again to have you all joining today. I know how busy you all are. With some of you I worked in the past, some of you spoke at our meetups before and events. So again, thank you so much for joining. Would you guys like to introduce yourself? Maybe Joliene, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Joliene. I'm the marketing director at Impraise. Impraise is a HR performance management solution. So they focus on providing feedback, doing performance reviews, helping teams with setting goals, helping managers with their one-on-one. So everything is focused around making more efficient teams, more effective teams, more engaged teams. And we're a SaaS, we're a scale-up in Amsterdam with around 60 employees. And currently we are, of course, also experiencing the effects of Corona, also with our own messaging. So we really had to redefine our strategy with regard to how can we add value to HR managers and how should we shift the messaging regarding that, actually. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Welcome. Nice. Diogo, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Diogo. I'm a brand guy, I guess. I've got a little bit over 10 years experience working in marketing and in building brands. A lot of that time spent at Heineken. And after 10 years there, I kind of decided there was enough of drinking beer and I wanted to try something else. So I joined Intersport a couple of months ago in the beginning of this year. And what I'm here to do today is to kind of take you through the challenges we faced in the last month. We're a sports company, and when you think about sports, it's all about team sports and being outdoors. And obviously, a lot of people cannot do that now. So I hope I can kind of inspire you how to still stay active in these tough times.
Nice, thanks, Diogo. Thanks for joining us again as a speaker.
Yes.
Welcome. Cool. Luke, do you wanna go?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys. So I'm Luke. I'm the marketing director at Growth Tribe. And Growth Tribe's an education company. We deliver learning experiences and training courses for individuals, businesses looking to acquire in-demand digital skills. We actually are probably about 80%, well, we're about 80% classroom-based learning. So that's obviously come with some challenges of its own, which I maybe go into a bit later. But yeah, I've been working there since September actually as the marketing director. Originally joined back in 2018. Is employee number 21. We're now about 100 people. So I've seen the company scale quite quickly and been on that journey with the company. So hopefully you can give a perspective as well from I guess a scale up. Yeah, my background's actually more in say digital marketing, performance marketing, a little bit of content as well. But obviously working for a smaller company, you have to wear many hats. So communication and the challenges that have come with that has been a big learning for me as well as the company, I think actually. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Cool, thanks Luke, welcome. And the last speaker of the day, Ferdinand. Welcome, Ferdy.
Hi, Matias. Yeah, thanks again for having me. My name is Ferdinand. I'm the Director of Marketing and Growth at 3D Hubs. 3D Hubs is an online manufacturing platform that what we essentially do is we allow engineers in hardware companies all around the world to manufacture their parts and products and prototypes faster, more affordably, and more sustainably than would usually be the case. So we leverage automation, artificial intelligence, and a global network of manufacturing partners and factories to really force this kind of supply chain resilience, allowing companies to weather the storm. So with a world of trade wars, pandemics, and global warming, if you have all of your eggs in one basket and you're manufacturing everything in one country or in one place, only one global thing has to come in the way for you to, or global occurrence has to get in your way for your entire manufacturing supply to basically move to a stop. And through a global network of partners and by automating a lot of these processes, we allow companies to keep manufacturing and manufacture effectively throughout times of peace and times of crisis. That being said, I think one thing that sets us apart with regards to the whole coronavirus situation is the manufacturing industry is, on the one hand, first of all, it's the biggest industry in the world, $13 trillion. It's an industry that is both incredibly strongly hit by this crisis, but it's also an industry that has a lot of sub-industries, and some of which are really thriving. So if you think about medical devices and food and agriculture, so it's a very interesting industry, and we kind of felt the sting of COVID a lot earlier than other companies, because most companies had to react in March and April when Western countries started going on lockdown. We started feeling it on our supply side already in China in February. So we had a little bit more time to plan our communications. Yeah, prior to working here, I was the Chief Growth Officer at Recruity, which is an online recruitment software. And prior to that, I was a lead trainer and growth marketer at Growth Tribe, where Luke works now. And I left shortly before he joined. That's it for me.
Nice, welcome, Ferdy. And something that, of course, you're not going to mention, but I'm going to mention it myself. You won an award, right? Marketeer of the Year last year. So pressure is on.
Under 30. Let's take some of that pressure off. Under 30.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining all of us today. It's again an honor. So the way we're gonna go about this, it's quite unusual for our webinars. It's not gonna be only a chat, but some of you prepared a few slides to basically represent visually what you guys are gonna talk about. So what we're gonna do is each of the speakers are gonna present and tell us a little bit about their story more in depth, and then we're gonna open the space for questions of the audience. So please, again, drop your questions in the chat box and the YouTube link, and then we're gonna just have a chat as we always do. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna present my screen. This can go wrong. Hopefully not. Here we go. Does it work well? Can you all see it? Yeah. Cool. Okay, so here's us. I'm gonna move you guys to the side for a sec. There we go. So yeah, this is us, all pretty and stuff. And the first speaker is gonna be Joliene, telling us her story about how Impress is adjusting to the current pandemic. So Joliene, the digital stage is all yours.
Thank you, Mati. Yeah, so I think 99% of the companies, especially startups and scale-ups, are affected by COVID in one form or another. Some, I think, a little portion positively, but a big portion neutrally, or a little bit downsided, or even a lot. We also, of course, as Impress, started to see a difference in the market. Buying intent goes down. People are panicked. because they are adapting to all these new stages of work and of living. And what we started to do at Impraise, we also started to think about, okay, what's currently happening with this world? And the funny thing is that we were actually our own guinea pig, right? Because we were experiencing the same thing as our customers, as our prospects, which was for us a first, that we were actually also in the driver's seat of what we were, the pains and the things that we were experiencing at the time. And what we tried to look at first is, what are the stages that our company is going through right now? Because of course, buying intent went down. Who's going to buy performance management at the time? That was our thought, right? It's not your first tool that you need if you're going to work remotely. That will be your email, your Slack, and Zoom, for example, and not performance management. So we started to look at, okay, what are those stages that companies are going through? What are the fears that they're having? And based on researches we found online, of course, this is the first maybe world crisis, but we had a lot in the past. So a lot of research has been done on where companies go through when a crisis like this happens. So I actually identified 4 stages where companies go through. First is, of course, disorder. I think everybody experienced it in the first couple of weeks that went into remote working, that there was a lockdown. Your strategy is not working anymore. The OKRs that you're set are not working anymore. So a lot of things are happening at the same time. There's panic. People don't have the right tools or the right processes in place to actually work from home. Then you move more in towards the stage 2. I think a lot of companies are now actually in stage 2. So they are adjusting. People are getting used to working from home. They have the first set of tools ready, the first set of processes ready, and starting to get used a little bit to this way of working and start to look a little bit more midterm, long-term ahead of where the world is going. And then the third stage is getting ready, is you finally know what Corona has done or what COVID has done to the market on the long term. I think we're still not there yet. The market is still very fluctuant. And then, you're starting to adapt to this new reality, build more midterm, long-term goals, and start hopefully to grow again, or you've adapted your business in that time. For example, as Growth Tribe has done, and then the new reality, because we all do believe that COVID has a lasting impact and that will not just go away once the borders open and once the lockdown goes away. So that's actually how we looked at it. And then we started to look at what is the role of HR and what is the role of managers in this, because HR are our point of contacts and managers are the ones that use our tool a lot. So we're looking at, okay, what do they need? What are they feeling? What are the pains that they're feeling? And we started to map our products to these phases. So where can we add value? Where can we actually help managers and HR managers to run their teams smoothly and effectively remote, and to make sure that teams are still engaged. And that's actually what we've been doing as our strategy. And the first part of the strategy that we've done is actually look at, okay, what happens in that chaos phase? And we were, again, our own guinea pigs, that we saw, okay, we need some kind of test engagement with our teams, because normally you see each other every day and you actually feel that engagement. But now, because people are working remotely, people are more in their own zone, it's very hard to measure engagement. So we started to use our engagement survey as a pulse survey. We actually started to realize that checking in with your people brought a lot of very valuable information for us. So we send it twice. The beginning was twice a week, then we went to once a week. Probably we're going to go to once every 2 weeks. And we had a template of questions, and every time we asked people our same questions about how they're feeling. That actually helped managers and also HR a lot with how's the company overall doing, but also managers gave them some guidelines when they were doing their one-on-ones to see how people are actually feeling. And it was working so well for us that we actually built it into our tool, because we didn't have a pulse survey. We just had a normal engagement survey. So within a week, we were able to launch a new functionality within our tool. Which we first tested, of course, on ourselves, and then we started to test with our customers, because the whole focus that we've had during COVID is first customers, and then looking to the market. So first, we want to make sure how they're feeling, that we can help them, that we can add value to them, and then we were starting looking to the market. Can we add that same value into the market as well? And now currently we see that people are more in towards the second stage. And now we are also with our product moving in towards that second stage. So we have a one-on-one functionality. So we're actually now helping customers, but also hopefully prospects, to run effective one-on-ones, especially with now the new tools that they're getting, or the new insights that they're getting, for example, from a Pearl survey or from another tool that they're having. And so hopefully this has been a strategy that's been working for us, especially to place yourselves into the pains and the fears of your customers and what they're experiencing, and especially also in that first phase. A lot of customers, we let them alone, let them do their thing, because of course not everybody was as some of the companies were very badly affected, of course, during COVID, and they first needed to do the basics. Instead of starting to run remotely, they needed to change their whole business, because sports companies or companies in the travel industry, they just were hit enormously. So they had a very different focus. So that's actually has been our strategy for the past couple of weeks. And it's been an interesting journey. And so hopefully soon we can go into the third stage, and actually also for us, but for every company, see where the market is going, and also adapt a little bit our strategy to that as well.
Cool. And then you've been also matching that with a lot of content creation as well, right? So creating content.
Yeah, it's interesting. So one thing I actually forgot to mention, it's good that you bring it up. Normally we have a help center that's connected to our tool. We're actually starting to publish how-to articles with Impraise also on our blog as a sort of help center, because the one thing that we really noticed is that, especially HR managers, but I can imagine a lot of people in different industries are looking at how to do things because it's the first time, right? They're experiencing this for the first time. So we saw a lot of increase in searches for how to do this remotely, how to do that remotely, how to do this. So actually we tried to really push our focus into writing a lot of free content on regarding that as well. So we actually created a lot of templates on how to do a pulse survey, or templates for how to do one-on-ones, so that we actually it's in a Google Doc. You can download it, you can do it yourself. If you want to use Impraise for it, awesome, but please just use it and be a thought leader on that. And that's been working really well. You want to add value. I think that's the most important thing to do right now. It's not just to sell your product, it's more, how can we help you in this time, and how can we add value to you so that you can actually go about your business?
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Joliene. If anybody in the audience has any questions for Joliene, please feel free to add them to the chat. Again, we're going to read questions and answer your questions after the next presentations. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have the next, I think the next slide is from Ferdy. Yeah, and 3D Hubs.
Yeah, so I would say the key to a good communication strategy, whether it's a time of crisis or not, is to have, basically you're trying to develop a strategy through which you can effectively communicate the value that your company brings to a market. That's ultimately what you're trying to do. And I think a lot of companies that struggle with communications are the ones who use communication as a way to try to sell more than what they are, or try to tell a story. They want to be the company that's engaged in philanthropy. They want to be the company that cares about its users. They want to be this and this and that, but in reality, they put more efforts into the communications than what is actually behind them. So for us, the key to good communications is really trying to convey what we are as a company, our vision, our values, and essentially the brand identity we're trying to push out there. So when this crisis hit, the first thing we started thinking about is our positioning. Now, it's true, of course, we see it everywhere. There are going to be drops in demand. There are going to be all kinds of fluctuations within the market. This is a crisis, an unprecedented crisis, something that's really affected the entire world in such a symmetrical way as well. Every country has had to respond to this. I think it's over 4 billion people are currently in lockdown. That is an absurd thing to even think about. And especially in times like this, crises can be challenging, but crises can also be an opportunity to think again about what you're doing and how you're doing it. It forces you to be more resourceful. It forces you to focus on impact. It forces you to trim the fat and not focus on the things that are maybe more vanity projects, things that are longer term or softer, or where you don't know whether the impact is going to be there, loose experiments. So this is really an opportunity to think about, how do we do things as a company? What are our values as a company? How can we best convey them in the midst of this crisis? So the first thing that we did is really think about our positioning. Because it's true, of course, we've seen drops in demand. In some industries, we see drops of demand up to 40%. That's really, really significant. But a drop in demand is not as simple as a drop in demand. A drop in demand is a fluctuation in demand. What we see is, even if your entire industry sees a drop in demand, there are companies looking for new solutions, cheaper solutions, more effective solutions. Some companies have put on hiring freezes, but they're hiring freelancers in order to compensate for their plans that they originally had. So if you can think about how your positioning relates to this crisis, I think that's the first step. Before you even think about the communications, think about where can we and where do we create value? Because it's a very, very fine line between engaging with the situation and taking advantage of it. And I think if you don't manage your communications well, you could fall on the negative side of that. You don't want to be the company that's overplaying the corona effect, but you do want to be the company that's really displaying its value. So a very simple thing that we're doing, for example, one thing that really sets us apart in this crisis as a company is that we have this global network of suppliers. What that means is that we are not affected by individual lockdowns in individual countries. So the first thing we did is start using different terminology, things like 100% operational, business as usual. These are really, really, especially if you're in a supply chain business, be that e-commerce, be that anything that requires some kind of supply or delivery or logistics mechanism, it's very important to emphasize those sort of things. On the flip side, if you cannot cater to your audience as you usually would, transparency and openness is the absolute key. People need to know what to expect. Managing people's expectations is more important than ever. So before we started really focusing on all of these communications, we really wanted to think about how can we have the most immediate impact. We're in a very unique position. So this slide here, I just wanted to share it briefly. We decided almost overnight, we pulled together the whole team's resources across departments, and we launched what we call the COVID-19 Manufacturing Fund. Now, we're in a unique position because we manufacture already for the medical industry a lot. And we also have a big network, a global network of people, investors, entrepreneurs, influencers, people who are looking for ways to contribute to helping in this crisis. So we launched this fund, and we tried to really prioritize, how can we have impact? And what's really nice about this fund, if you're interested in participating, you can visit the link above. What's really interesting about this fund is that when you donate money, it goes immediately to putting medical equipment in the hands of doctors around the world. So we've raised over $37,000 in total, 10,000 plus, over 10,000 face shields manufactured, and we've helped over 20 hospitals, and not just the hospitals in the US and the UK and France, but also hospitals in Albania, in India, in Kosovo. So and if you make a donation now, that turns into a real impact pretty much in a few days. So it's a very tangible way. We realized that we really want to be a company that is making a difference before we start communicating about making a difference. I think that's very important, that your communication needs to reflect your values as a company. So if you want your communication to look a certain way, you need to make sure the values of your company also are in line with that. So this is one sort of thing that we're doing. So I think that is the challenge, finding that fine line. On the one hand, you need to keep creating value, as Joliene said. The creation of value is the most important thing, but you need to start thinking about what makes you still valuable in general during a crisis like this. And you need to really not just kind of think, because I see a lot of kind of communication discussions and communication strategies ending in, oh, let's just pull out ideas out of the air. I love what this company does, right? If you're in the manufacturing industry, it's super tempting to be like, what is Elon Musk doing? Let's just do what he's doing, right? Because everyone loves Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is great. And I don't deny that, but you really need to think about, well, who are we as a company? We know what our advantages are. We know that supply chain resilience, affordability, and speed are things that set us apart from the rest of the competition. And we know that those three factors are more important than ever during a crisis like this. So we're not the ones who are going to send out messaging saying, are you suffering from corona? Here we are to save your life. That's terrible messaging, and I've seen a lot of companies do this. You need to be just very transparent and open, because this is a time of uncertainty. And I think people's bullshitometers are higher than ever before. So if you're honest and transparent, and if you feel like your communications need to really reflect some kind of impact you're having, then think about how you can create that impact so you can then communicate about it afterwards. I think the substance needs to drive the communications a lot in these times.
Nice, Ferdy. And can you tell us a bit more about how you put together this fund in record time? Like how do you go from like having the idea to implementing it to promoting it? Like how long did that take? How do you go about that process?
It started with a sideline suggestion, I think, on a Friday evening. and then a concrete suggestion on a Sunday morning, and it was live on Monday morning. It was just a full team effort. We had all of our supply, logistics, and support teams working with our manufacturing partners, because we have an automated flow when we sell manufacturing. But in this case, we're not making any money off this. So we're not running our usual processes, our usual automations, our usual pricing. That's not how it's running. This is completely separate. So everyone on that side really hustled to find the suppliers who can manufacture these parts. Then in the marketing team, our job was just communications. So we put together an entire strategy. We really thought about, how can we have immediate impact, which is one of the reasons why at the beginning we thought about making a whole variety of critical equipment for hospitals. We then decided the most direct impact right now is face shields. Face shields, they're relatively easy to manufacture, they're cheap to manufacture, and they have a very quick and immediate impact. If you're dealing with things like ventilator parts, there's a lot of PR around it, but the reality is we don't know how safe some of those materials are. We don't know how well approved some of those designs are. And yeah, there are some deeper ethical questions that need to be cleared before we would really venture into that space. So we thought, how can we have the most impact? We really pulled all the teams together to put it live. And I think from a communication side, what was unique is that we decided to run it like a fund. We started off with a landing page. We quickly decided to ditch the landing page and just keep the GoFundMe page. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's about the donations and it's about the impact. And then throughout this, we're sharing updates. So we're getting Instagram stories and WhatsApp messages from doctors in France, in Argentina, taking selfies with the face shields in the hospitals in the midst of this crisis. And that's a very powerful story to tell. And of course, if you have that story to tell, you should be telling that story. But you should not be telling stories that you are not actively involved in. I think that's really the key. You don't want to be taking advantage of this crisis. You see it a lot in the remote software sphere. You're seeing some companies that are creating a lot of value and really communicating that accurately. But you're also seeing a lot of companies that aren't really, questionably creating value, but they're talking about it a lot just because they're remote. They just say, okay, remote, Corona, we have something to say. It's just really important to communicate it. And in our case here, what we decided to do, we really care about our brand. We like to have polished, clean, and consistent branding. But we decided that for something like this, it just needs to be raw, it needs to be real, it needs to be transparent. So we're sharing pictures on the front lines. We're sharing all kinds of pictures and materials that sometimes it might not be the best quality photo. It might not be the most branded kind of setup, but that doesn't matter in this case, because right now, this project is not our business. This is a project that we saw that we could help with. And then on a communication standpoint, we just want it to speak for itself. So those are some of the communication decisions we made around this. But other companies are doing the same. Some have been more public, some less. Of course, being in the 3D printing sphere means that we get quite a lot of press interest in general, because it's just such a cutting edge technology and journalists love to write about it.
Amazing, Ferdy. Thank you so much. We're getting a lot of positive comments from the audience saying, thank you so much. You blew my mind. And then some questions that we're going to address in a bit, but we just want to keep going. And then we're going to address all the questions. So please keep asking questions in the chat. Moving on, the next one in line is Diogo. Diogo, I didn't think about this, but you have to tell me when to change the slides because I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, that's fine, no worries.
I will do that. And before you go, I want to say that it's really nice to have such a diverse background in you guys. I mean, SaaS, manufacturing, now Diogo and Luke that are coming up. It's nice. We really hope you found this valuable for the people watching this, I hope. Okay, Diogo, you're next.
Thank you. So yeah, I think I'm going to start by the past or the 2 months ago at Intersport. We had a plan. We, as a multi-category sports retailer, we kind of do our plans in the same way as the fashion industry do. There's spring, summer, and fall, winter. So everything was planned out for the rest of the year. And as I was saying in my introduction, sports, it's all about connecting with people. It's about being outside, whether that's running, playing football, doesn't really matter. At the gym, you're surrounded by people. And yeah, we had that in place. But then, and that's the next slide, we faced this reality. We're closed, and our stores started to close, gyms starting to close, football matches starting to get canceled, and just people, yeah, getting in lockdown and really struggling to keep their sports, their sports activity. So what we had to do was to come up with a plan. And the next slide will show you kind of briefly what were the 5 steps we took. First was about assessing the situation, what's happening, then define a plan based on that. Then we obviously had to work heavily on remote collaboration. That's something that was a bit new for Intersport. And then we implemented the plan. We're now on the phase of testing and learning. And I'm just going to finish these 10 minutes by kind of giving you what are the key takeouts that we get out of this short campaign we've implemented. So going on to the first step, assessing the situation, there's nothing that much new here. It's about asking what's happening, getting information, doing some research, getting to an understanding of how is this impacting our business and how is it impacting our brand. And for us, it is a massive impact. Stores getting closed, people just not wanting to shop at all, not being able to do sports. So definitely there's something that's hitting us hard in there. Then looking a little bit around and seeing what are others doing. And I really like what Freddie was saying about just stay true to yourself, understand what's your positioning, what's your value, what you can add to this, and don't just look at whatever all of the others are doing and copy what they're doing, because that's not going to give you much success. And here, what I mean by looking at what others are doing is just seeing, yeah, what's happening, how can we help? And then the following question was, can we actually do something about it? Can we do it in a distinctive way, in a relevant way, and in a credible way for us? And that helps others. We are, as Intersport, our DNA is about the heart of sport, and it's rooted on 2 really important things for us. That's the sport enthusiasm, the passion you have for sports that you like to do or to watch or to be part of sports. And the other one is about local communities. We are a very decentralized retailer. We have over 5,500 stores across the world. And all of these stores are very well rooted in their local communities and in the sports communities. So if we were going to do something about coronavirus or about COVID, we had to make sure that it was still about this sporting enthusiasm, and it was still about communities and giving back to the communities. And then finally, the last question is, okay, now if we have a plan, if we want to make a plan, what does it take? Can we make it? Can we pull it off? And that's on the next slide. Our plan was, and Matias asked me to be very kind of pragmatic and actually explaining how it happened. So that's why it's so kind of, yeah, objective and detailed. On the 16th of March, it was a Monday morning. I had a chat with the team, and we decided, yeah, we do need to do something about it. So the planning, the research phase was already happening, and we decided we do need to do something about the situation. And we have the right to do it, and I think we can find a way to do it. Sports play a major role in helping people getting through this, in helping them staying active even if they're at home, in helping them staying not only physically healthy but also mentally healthy. So let's brief our agency. Let's be clear on what do we want to do, and from the get-go, that was that we want to be here for the community. We want to be here to help people and to help them stay active. It's not about selling, and that was a very clear task given to the agency: is don't bring me a campaign that in the after you see a very nice inspirational video or whatever it is that you're gonna think of. At the end of the video, there's a link to buy more or to buy from us or to visit the store. It's not about that, and this campaign is not linked to commercial objectives at all. And then throughout the week, from Monday to Friday, it was a chaotic week of calls and emails and presentations. We had a team that was split a little bit around the world, from the Netherlands to Switzerland. We were partnering with Nike at the moment. They helped us kick this off, and they were all over the place in terms of all over the world as well. So it was quite challenging to make that work, but we did it. We launched the campaign on the 22nd of March, and we used the first week to assess the results, see what are we doing right, what do we need to change. And since the 30th of March on, we're just on this phase of just testing, learning, and improving. And to talk to you a little bit about the remote collaboration, that's the next slide. it was challenging because there was a lot of people involved. There was an internal team, the brand marketing team, the social media team, the marketing activation team, and everybody needs to be aware of what's happening. We cannot just from the brand marketing side say we're going to do this, and then suddenly I give something to the social media team and they have no clue what to do with it, and then the marketing activation team doesn't know. So everybody had to be really well aligned on this and buying into the campaign. And on the external teams, we had an agency working on it. We had our partner brands, and here a big thanks to Nike, that were the ones really supporting us to get this live in the first place. And then all of the trainers and athletes that joined and that also had to be on board. And what was important for us, especially during that creative week and the implementation week, was to be very clear defining these ways of working. Making sure that whoever is working on the campaign has full dedication for it and it's not distracted by anything else, that we have daily check-ins, and they were happening more than once a day, that the approval system was really easy and streamlined. And yeah, in big companies, sometimes that can take a long time to go through. So we made sure that that was not the case, and that we had a key decision maker identified just to make sure that that things kept on moving. So that led us to our workings campaign. That's the next slide, and to explain like very briefly on a page what this is about. The situation, we all know, we are stuck at home for the foreseeable future. We don't know how long this is going to take, and we see that all of these sport enthusiasts around the world are craving for inspiration and for help to stay active. So we identified here an opportunity that was to kind of unlock this worldwide community of coaches and sport enthusiasts, and help them by creating a space where they can push each other and they can support each other to stay active. And then here, looking back to that one of the values on our DNA, that's about communities. This is really about that, about using these real people. You won't see like massive football players in our Instagram channel, because we are about this, grassroots almost sports marketing. And so the idea was then very easy, I would say, is when you cannot get outside, it's time for your workouts to come in too. So it's workings by Intersport, and it's executed in three big content pillars. One is live sessions that happen on Instagram. The other one is pre-recorded content, and the last one is user-generated content. We're using our global and our local channels to bring this to life. And after the first week of implementation, and then we go to the test, learn, and improve slide, we realized that there were some things that we needed to adapt. So we have three global channels: training, running, and football. On training, it was pretty clear from the beginning that what we were doing was working. There was like live sessions at 8:30 a.m. to get everybody active from the moment they get out of bed. And yeah, we have awesome trainers there that are really energetic. They're very engaging with the audience, and everybody can ask questions during that session. They can send some suggestions the days before so that this trainer can adapt the session to what the audience is asking. So that was working well, and that's what we keep on doing. But we realized that for football and for running, things needed to be a little bit different. It's really hard to have a football session at home, a training session at home. So we shifted the focus there more to have these coaches that are still talking live to you. They do Q&As, they interview footballers, and they maybe they teach you some tricks with a football ball or with toilet paper, like it was a lot of videos we saw in the last couple of weeks. And on the running channel, it's all about motivation and inspiration. We realize that for a runner at heart, running is like a drug. It becomes an addiction. And now that you cannot go outside and run in a lot of countries, you're kind of having these withdrawal symptoms. So what we have there is this group of professional runners that are helping people getting through these withdrawal symptoms of running, and helping them, whether that's with motivational talks or with Q&As or with whatever suggestions they have for them, just helping them getting through this. And in a nutshell, that's kind of how workings is working. And the key takeouts that I would take from here, they're actually quite aligned with what Freddie was saying before. I think there's 3 things I would like you to take from this presentation. Is the first one is to be mindful. We are in a global crisis, and people are experiencing this in very different ways. Some more, some less. In Spain and in Italy, you cannot leave your house. In the Netherlands, we are lucky enough that we can still go out. So we need to be mindful of that, and especially if we are creating global content, we cannot judge that content and create that content based on our local reality. Then the second one is to make a plan. And sometimes doing nothing is also a plan. And I guess, again, to Freddie's point, don't just copy what others are doing. If you don't have value to add, if you don't have nothing meaningful to say and that's gonna help, just don't do it. It's better. And then the last one is to be honest. Whatever you do, just make sure you are true to your brand or to your service, because people will notice what you're trying to do is just to sell more, or if you're being just dishonest with yourself and with others. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Again, thank you so much, Diogo. That was really, really, really amazing. I think it was also something that I wanted to ask you is, I mean, of course, Intersport is like a global company. So I think something that you mentioned that was really insightful was how you adjusted this campaign to different markets, right? Wasn't that a challenge for you as a global, let's say, director of marketing, to make sure that the campaign resonates with different countries that are going through different types of lockdowns and regulations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, one of the good things internally of this campaign is that unlocked a new way for us to work with the markets. If we have an insight or a given moment that is relevant across the globe or across Europe or on a big region, if that insight is true and is relevant and the brand can use it in a meaningful way, then it can be used by any market. Unfortunately, we had this insight that's a negative one and that it's a bad thing, but it's still a valid thing for us to work on. So it was easy to get the markets to buy into this campaign and to adapt it locally, because everybody is experiencing the same. And when we explain this campaign to the local market saying we are stuck at home, this means that some of our fundamental human needs are being put at risk, like the need for social connection, the need for security, the need for doing sports as well. It is a physical need. And we can help as Intersport, we can help people to get through this in a better way. And this is a campaign here that it's based on that insight. It's called Work-ins. You can use it as you wish. If you want to use the global content, completely fine. We have all of these awesome coaches and trainers that are creating content for us, and you can join this wave. If you want to do this fully locally, it's also up to you. If you have in the UK, in France, in Egypt, they are also doing it. If you have your local community of trainers and coaches and whoever that is that you want to use, that's also fine. And we see it now all over the world that markets are using the campaign in completely different ways. Some of them just using what we are giving them as a global team. Some others not using that at all, just using the idea and the visual identity and the concept. And some others doing a mix of both.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Diogo. We're getting really good responses and also questions. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to share them with us. We're going to address them after Luke's presentation. So any question you have, please feel free to post them in the chat. Now, Luke, you are the last one.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, so I thought it'd be good to kick off this short presentation actually with a quote from a McKinsey article I read this morning actually. And I think coming from a company where, so experimentation is sort of in the DNA of Growth Tribe, it's really what we teach. And I do think in this moment with the current situation, experimentation is really being put into the spotlight, especially with larger companies as well, where often there's much higher levels of, there's much, bigger barriers to experimentation. So yeah, basically people are having to, iterate, change, improvise really, really quickly at the moment and try new things. So it's it's sort of the perfect time to experiment, to iterate and learn. As I said, sort of barriers to experimentation are rapidly dissolving. You're seeing, say, bigger corporate companies trying new things very quickly, where before people would have maybe not wanted to take certain risks. They are now taking those risks. And for a lot of businesses, Growth Tribe included, like digital channels are now becoming the sort of only channels that can be used. So yeah, I've included the link on this slide if you wanted to check it out. It was quite an enlightening read for me this morning, based on the current situation that we're all in. And yeah, what I was going to talk about from my point of view is actually how Growth Tribe as a company has had to rapidly adapt to this new reality. So yeah, being fundamentally an offline training company, so we give in-person courses, classroom-based courses. The impact of this could have been devastating if we hadn't have moved quickly. So yeah, I wanted to take you guys through some of the things that we did, some of the steps that we took to transition from offline-based courses to online-based courses. We've had, as a company, a few people asking questions about how we've gone about that. And yeah, really sort of highlight the importance in these times of experimentation and testing new stuff, and not being afraid to say fail or do things as an MVP, in a minimum viable way, I guess. So yeah, if we head onto the next slide. Yeah, so adapting to a new reality. I guess this is what most businesses are having to do at the moment, especially if your main business models are offline, like at Growth Tribe they were. So we really had to ask the question when, and we started this probably about, say, a week or two before the full lockdown went into place. I know in the Netherlands it's not, say, as heavy as Italy and Spain, but when people had to start working from home, we anticipated, okay, this is rapidly escalating. We need to do something. So I think Diogo covered this a little bit earlier in terms of asking the question, what? So we wanted to look at, okay, what's the impact on the market going to be here? For in-person learning, that's obviously going to be devastating. Companies were stop letting their people travel for trainings. Individuals were also becoming much more wary of going to, say, physical courses in classrooms full of 20, 30 people. We had to look at the impact on our clients as well. So we are mainly a B2B business. So companies were facing the same challenges as us. They were being hit really hard. They were sort of shifting to a mode of survival rather than looking to thrive. So the survive versus thrive. And they were needing to adapt quickly as well. There was some challenges companies had never faced before. We were sort of in unprecedented times, I guess. Thirdly was the impact on our organization. As I said, would be devastating. Our main revenue channels would essentially be frozen for the foreseeable future with offline training. And then obviously doing a bit of competitor analysis as well, like looking at how the competition are reacting, what potentially we could do better, and then what our distinctive value proposition was. Now, I completely agree with what Ferdinand and Diogo was saying earlier, that I think what you do in these times in terms of communication, 100% needs to be authentic. However, it's also important for me to look at what the market is doing, what the competition is doing, and figuring out, okay, how are you going to position yourself? How are you going to carve a niche for yourself? Because within our market, obviously, all offline training companies were rapidly shifting online, and we needed to think about, okay, actually, how are we uniquely positioned to stand out? So yeah, the result of all of that, I guess, we draw the conclusion that we needed to rapidly transition to remote online learning. Now, this was something that we had the idea to do for, well, we had in the planning, but the current situation basically forced us to accelerate a 6-month project into a 2-week project. And yeah, that's what we did. So how do we do it? Well, for me, it was that there were sort of 3 things that we needed to look at: ensure we had the right tech, the right team, and then probably importantly here, the right communications as well. So from a branding point of view, the technology we used for this stuff was super important, because as a company, what makes us special was our methodology, the way that we teach. And we wanted to sort of protect that. So making sure we had good technology that ensured our courses could remain sort of hands-on, enjoyable, fast-paced. The way that we do things was very important. So we first had to make sure that we could find the right tech. We worked with some really good partners actually on the marine terrain where we are. We're now using like a green screen learning studio, etc. We rapidly tested these things over a couple of days before deciding, okay, this works, it's high enough quality. And then really had to think, well, the next stage of this was, and probably the most important stage, it was putting together the right teams. Now, to remain agile when adapting to this, we had to put sort of cross-functional teams together, but smaller teams as well, so we could move quickly. And we sort of used pods to do that. So we had some video experts to help with ensure the quality was high, the streaming quality was high. We had some of our training experts to ensure that we could rapidly transition offline content to online content and it still be effective. And then also the marketing and sales teams as well to really think about, okay, when we do this, how are we going to effectively communicate with our clients? How are we going to effectively communicate with the market and create the right awareness? And these were, we basically tackled these in these pods in 2-week experimentation sprints. So we'd start with rapid value prop research and competitive intelligence. And we actually use a playbook, which I've shared, and maybe you'll get the link to, on quickly reverse engineering, say, the funnels of competition. Now, going back to what, again, Ferdy and Diogo were saying, I'm not encouraging people to copy the competition, but it's good to really get a gauge on what is going on and what people are doing, so you can think about how you do carve that niche for yourself. But you do need to think about how you're uniquely positioned to solve the problems of the market, solve the problems of your customers, because if you're not authentic, as Ferdy was saying, there's a lot of, say, bullshit communication at the moment, things that you can see through quite easily. Yeah, then we just went into building landing pages, product brochures, user testing was really important, iterating. And then by the end of week 1, we'd launch these things and then spend the next week really on the marketing communication of this stuff and the optimization of the channels that we were using. And with this as well, I think it's really important to highlight that when you move really fast, things will break, and that's okay. You sort of improve as you go. Like, we had to rapidly launch a new website we turned around a new website in just a couple of days. Yes, the performance isn't great. We need to improve it. Yes, there's some problems. We keep having to change some stuff, but from the user testing and stuff, it serves the purpose it needs to. And when you're dealing with a crisis, I think you need to accept that not everything is going to be perfect. And you can go for the, say, MVP approach. And then the final one is having the right communication. So both internally and externally for us as a company. I'm not sure if anyone's touched on the internal communication side of stuff yet, but over communication is absolutely everything with this. And we're still learning as well. We're still not getting it completely right, but for instance, we're using Slack, so things that used to be direct messages, we're trying to make sure we put them into public channels. We were setting up the right groups and chats, so these pods could communicate effectively and everyone knew exactly what was going on. That includes daily stand downs with senior people in the company, and for all of the pods that we have set up as well. Updates from the different business unit leads on a daily basis of what's going on. But yeah, we're still learning and improving these processes as well. And then on the external side, I think for us, it was really important to very quickly tell our customers exactly what was happening and being fully transparent as well. So obviously there was people that may have paid for products, paid for courses, wanted to do offline based learning, and also didn't maybe feel safe at the time as well. This was before going into lockdown, say coming onto campus and taking a course. So the first thing for us to do, actually, if we move on to the next slide, was the communication of what we were doing as a company to make sure that we protected our customers, protected our community. And this was the idea about keeping people safe, helping people become a bit more anti-fragile, which I'll maybe come on to in a sec, and the idea of keeping people learning as well. So having said that, we're also super transparent with our customers and clients, which I think is really important. we were transitioning from off to online, so that does look different. It is different. So we were happy to reschedule, put things on hold, etc. Refund people that had paid for offline courses if they didn't want to do the online courses. And we were fully transparent about that with our customers and clients, which was really important in this situation, I guess. So we go to the next slide. For me, when it actually comes to, so our communication strategy at the moment at Growth Tribe, it sort of centers a bit around what Diogo and Ferdy were saying, and really trying to empathize with our customers and our community. And I think customer empathy is actually now more important than it ever has been, from the point of view of really getting into the minds of your customers and thinking, okay, what are the challenges they're facing right now, and how are you uniquely positioned, uniquely set up to help them through the challenges they are facing. So we came up with sort of a 3-pillar strategy, I guess. Pillar 1 is the idea of learning from home. So I guess this is Growth Tribe's take on working from home. So we realized that learning from home comes with, say, similar challenges to actually working from home. And we wanted to help ensure that our customers and community could effectively learn remotely. So giving them tips and tricks on how to best set up the learning experience when you're remote, how to make sure you can properly focus, etc. We wanted to do something that was more, there was so much stuff around remote work, you know, like all these different guides about how to work in remote teams and manage remote teams. But for us, actually, where we were uniquely positioned to help is to think about, okay, people that are doing courses, or even people that just wanted to get some downtime and take a moment to listen to a podcast or read a book when the kids were screaming at them. How can we help them actually focus and learn effectively? The next one was sort of keeping learning as well. We think that, what organizations sort of do at the moment is going to make or break them as the world recovers, as you saw in the quote from the first slide. And we want to really inspire teams and businesses and individuals to learn new skills and test new stuff. It's what we do as a company, learning. So we figured we could inspire others to keep at it, keep learning, keep upskilling. And then the final one, which is probably one of the more interesting, is the idea of being anti-fragile. And this is where we really wanted to give an inside look at the company to our communities on social media, on Slack, on our Facebook communities, and just the market in general, because we know our customers and clients are facing challenges and they're needing to adapt quickly to a new reality. So we wanted to give that inside look at what we're doing as a company, what we're doing across departments as well, from sales to marketing to our product teams, to actually adjust to this new reality and put the products online so quickly. On the next slide, there's a few, some screenshots of some of the stuff we did. So talking about some of the journeys we went on to put the courses online, communicating about actually what the online learning experiences look like and why they are different but exciting. We also had a campaign where, and he's probably going to kill me for putting his phone number on here, I'm not sure if you can see it again, but we put it on social media anyway, where people could actually, we put our founder David Arnou's mobile number on LinkedIn, and we just let our audiences basically call him up to say happy birthday, and also ask him questions and challenges, and just add that personal touch, and sort of keep engaging with our audiences as well. And then on the final slide, just a last note, I guess, is, and this has been a couple of people have glossed over this as well, the idea of thinking about what your value proposition is, and maybe how that needs to be adjusted or refocused on how your business can be uniquely sort of set up or positioned to help people in these unprecedented times. So I use the example there is Slack. I think they did it quite quickly. Yes, they're sort of a messaging platform, but I was seeing this pop up more and more often, where companies are very cleverly changing their value propositions to ensure that what they're highlighting was what's really going to benefit or what's of real value to people right now. Obviously, us as a company, we've transitioned from offline learning to online. So the idea, and from the customer research we did, we figured, okay, businesses, teams, they still do want to learn, but they're apprehensive of whether learning remotely is going to be effective. So we really needed to draw out the the value in actually carrying on learning online. But yeah, this has been a process, well, a 6-month project that we've had to undertake in about 2 weeks, which has come with a lot of challenges, and we're still learning a lot, and there's a lot of things that have gone wrong. I mean, even with the campaigns we sent out regarding the COVID-19 response and what we were doing as a company, I think on one of those emails, it was a piece written by Peter and our CEO that was dropped into the email. But when it was sent out, I think it was sent from the wrong email address. So we got a load of responses saying, okay, what's going on here? I'm a bit confused. But we were just transparent. We responded and said, like, look, this is, yeah, we made a mistake, etc. And people, I guess, like that. And they responded in a positive way when we sort of explained we're moving fast and what we're doing. So yeah, I guess for me, the summary here is just take the opportunity now to experiment and do things you normally wouldn't be able to. I think especially we're seeing with larger companies, they're having the chance to test and improvise at a rate that they never have done before. So yeah, perhaps now is your chance to work on some stuff or run some experiments that you never have done in the past, maybe because your legal or finance team or whatever's not been able to sign it off.
Nice, Luke. Thank you so much. So definitely there is a word that keeps coming up, that is experimentation. I think that could also be your growth marketing background in some of you. That is quite interesting for maybe people that have a PR background, you know, or a communications background, and maybe they never really had a chance to experiment new messaging or new communication strategy. Maybe this is a good chance. But having said that, we got a bunch of questions along the way. So maybe let's start with the ones that came up at the beginning. We have one for Ferdy. How would you apply these concepts to people in the creative or educational industry space when the product is more emotionally based?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, okay, I will answer that. I just want to tack onto the experimentation point. Actually, quite interestingly, I love experimentation, my whole background, Growth Tribe and all, but I actually don't think this is a time to be experimenting with your messaging too much. I think you can experiment on how you deliver a message, but what the message is itself, you can't be changing your messaging every week. This is a crisis, there's uncertainty. People need to know where you stand as a company, what value you bring, and how you plan to bring that. So I think experimentation is very important, maybe on the style, which wording you use, how you choose to, how you do it. That's where the experimentation will play a role. What you say should not be experimental. I think that's maybe that's more my side, but also generally in a crisis like this with all this uncertainty, I've also advised my team, we've now drawn a clear line between what we call experimentation and testing and optimization, because they get interchanged a lot. So testing and optimization is improving what already works, doubling down on what works, whereas experimentation includes all the discovery stuff, finding new channels, finding new ways to acquire customers. We've actually put a lot of that on hold, simply because we need to tighten the screws. We need to make sure that everything is operating at maximum efficiency, that we're maximizing return on investment. Now, to bring that to the question, if you're working in a creative space, yeah, obviously I don't work with a creative product, so it really depends on what your product is, what your service is, but you need to ask yourself, what value can you convey? What value are you bringing as a company? And yeah, there is no blanket answer to that. That's really going to be case by case. And usually anyone who's heard me speak before, it's really boils down to there are no growth hacks. There are no silver bullets. There are no one size fits all cookie cutter template approach. It simply doesn't work. And every business is going to be affected differently. So if you're a creative designer, if you're a creative writer, if you work for a branding agency, you might find that some companies will deem your services more essential or less essential depending on what strategies they choose, but you need to be very aware of who those companies are. So what I would suggest is, if you want to really convey value as a business, the key here is really understand your core customers. We all do segmentation, we all create personas, we all have a vague idea of who our business, which businesses or which consumers use our products or services, but we tend to have quite a wide net. We don't really zero in on who are the 10, 15, 20% of customers who are delivering 80% of the value, be that in revenue, be that in using your platform the way it should be used, be that in activities, be that in followers. It really depends on what your business is. So what you need to think about is, okay, what clients, what customers have I had over the last 2 years? who are the ones who really get what I do, who really prioritize. So if you're a branding agency, for example, and you're working with a company that doesn't really value branding, you're probably one of the first agencies that they're going to cut out of their budget, right? So you need to really understand, what are the companies that understand the value of branding at this time? Which companies really need the right brand strategy? If you're, if you run a public library, probably your brand strategy is not that vital at this point in time. But if you're running a medical devices company, for example, if you're working in a field that is very strongly, very directly, if you run a cruise ship company, if you run an online hotel booking platform, it doesn't really matter. That's when you are directly, your experience and what's happening in the market is directly intertwined. You then need to understand, who are the people who will keep using my services or product despite everything. And I think one of the things that we're seeing now is we're seeing some companies with hiring freezes. We're seeing some companies laying off entire teams. We're seeing some companies on the verge of bankruptcy. And I think one of the reasons for this is, of course, some industries are really hard hit by this industry, and they have to consider whether their market is going to be valuable at all. If you're in the tourist industry, that's a huge range of different companies. You have to ask yourself, well, is this going to change in the next year? And does my business still make sense in the world that is going to emerge from this? I think some people have to ask some really, really tough questions, because we live in this over-consumerist culture. Every product you want to buy, there's 50 companies that do that. The truth is, 2 or 3 companies do it well, and the other 47 do it shit. And these companies, when the economy is in an upswing, and even if the upswing might be artificial or enhanced or temporary, in an upswing, a lot of companies that don't have really clear value propositions, who don't have really clearly defined users, who don't create very clear, distinct value, still can make money. But when a crisis hits, all of those companies suffer. Any agency that doesn't produce real value, any company whose product is not as good as it seems, they're going to suffer. So the question is, who are the customers that you serve, to whom your service or product is absolutely essential? And then you need to understand, what are their goals? What are their ambitions? Where do they get their information? How do they inform themselves? What are their goals and priorities on a personal, professional, and social level? And then you need to make sure that you can find the right messaging and the right communication strategy to connect the value you create with these core customers who are going to stick to you no matter what. Now, this doesn't mean that anyone who's suffering an economic speed bump or even backlash from the situation should just give up. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But it is true that there are a lot of companies that don't really create that much value. Most content on the internet is crap. Most influencer posts on LinkedIn are pointless, vapid, boring things that nobody really, really, truly cares about at the end of the day. And I think that's the problem, that the only way to survive in a crisis like that is to become indispensable, is to become really crucial. This is why everything from toiletries to food, agriculture, medical products, those things are essential. That's why they don't suffer in a crisis. Core natural resources, to some extent, also, they don't suffer as much in a crisis like this. Now, not everyone has the luxury of having an absolutely essential product or service, but you should have a subset of customers or segments of customers who do see the value more than others. I've worked for agencies and we've had some customers who get us 100%. And then I've worked for agencies where, the customers, they have the luxury of being able to afford us on the side of other things that they do. You need to really be able to define which customers are which and how you can leverage their needs within and then communicate that effectively. So that's not a very direct answer to the question if you're in a creative or emotional space, but creativity is important and emotions are important. Everything, branding, design, all of these things, there are companies for whom this is bread and butter, right? A company like Apple is never going to downsize its design team, right? So it's really important to know who are the customers who really get your product and really care. And that's why I said that we started with positioning first before trying to define new communications, because it really has to tie together. And that's the most direct answer I can give to that question.
That was really powerful, Ferdy. I think that was definitely something that we all needed to hear, right? How to become indispensable. I think it's really, really interesting. We are getting more questions. We have one for Joliene. Joliene, what are some steps you can take now to assess how to add value to your current offering? Was it clear?
Can you repeat it again to make it 100% clear? Before I'm answering something wrong.
What are some steps that you can take now to assess how to add value to your current offering?
Well, I think the most important thing is I think I like Ferdy's point about really focusing on your customers that know you add value. But I think the most important thing to do is talk to customers, is really experience what they're feeling, because we can all make assumptions, right, on what works or what should work or where we can add value or how we think we could add value. So if you take the whole remote working, of course, I can make an assumption on how you could use Impress as a tool, but you need to talk to your customers in order to feel what they're experiencing currently, especially HR managers. For us and managers themselves, we talk to a lot of our users and to our HR managers from a perspective like, how do you make sure that that your company that now being remote are still engaged or are still happy from a personal and a professional space. We also at Embrace have a lot of people who live in the Netherlands, but have their whole family on the other side of the world, right? So, and they are worried about their family and they can't go home. So there's more than just the professional space that you need to take care about. And the same goes for managers. We just before this webinar started had also a conversation among ourselves, like, how do you experience being a manager while being remote? What are your own challenges that you're facing? And I think that's the most important thing to do, is first talk to your customers and see, okay, what is the pain that they're experiencing in their current day-to-day work, and where then can we add value? And does this already match to the thing that we're offering, or do we need to change it a little bit in order to really add value? Because I think that's the most important thing. I think that's the conclusion message of everybody in this room. Everybody's saying, where can I add value through true value, not just like, I think I can add value. You know, where are you different? Where can you add value? And if you can't add value, then you're not relevant, and you shouldn't. You should, yeah. I hope that answered it a little bit.
No, definitely, 100%. And I think that ties directly to the next question for Diogo and 30. Because you both mentioned that your campaigns, I'm just going to read you the question. It's going to be easier. How do you both manage the campaigns in terms of accomplishing the idea of only helping and not selling or promoting anything? Who would like to?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I mean, it's about your company values as well, and the people that you work with. There will be companies that will want to take advantage of the situation, and although it might seem on the outer shell that they're being nice and mindful, they're not, and they're just trying to sell. I got one of these. Maybe you guys got it as well. One of these memes of the template for the COVID email from customer care starts by, you and our employees are the thing that we care about the most. We are still operating by here. And I got a lot of those emails. If you don't really believe that you can help people, and if your company is not at heart trying to make a difference, then that's not going to work. So it was not, I didn't have even to convince anyone in the company, let's not sell things through this campaign. Everybody just figured that, yeah, obviously, because we do need to help people and we have a role to play. We cannot, there was someone else saying the other day, it was a really nice sentence. I hope I can repeat it. It was something like, you cannot share your losses with consumers and then cash in all of the profits. We are now in the moment where we also need to share the losses, and we need to help people in a way.
Ferdy, you have anything to add?
Yes, I'm not sure I remember the exact wording of the question. If you could repeat that.
Yeah, so basically, how do you manage to, hang on, out here. How do you both manage the campaigns in terms of accomplishing the idea of only helping and not selling or promoting anything?
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, so back to the campaigns. Yeah, I think honestly, it's really just about transparency. If you're creating value, you can be open about the value that you create. It's as simple as that. I think people can tell if you're overselling something. They can usually tell, especially people in the industry, especially in the B2B context. People tend to know when they're being oversold to, or when they're being fibbed to. So I think it comes back to, I completely agree with what Joliene said, is that you need to create value, you need to talk to your customers. And I think one of the problems we have, and it comes back to what I say in pretty much, I can have 20 talks on 20 completely different topics. I always come back to the same thing, is that we all suffer from the fact that marketing and growth marketing and all this has become very popular in the last years, which has attracted a lot of people to it, which has also diluted a lot of the value in a lot of cases. A lot of people posting stuff that isn't really impactful, a lot of influencers who are just hacking algorithms and not really sharing good value. And this is where what happens is there's a lot of things in marketing and growth that people agree in theory, but they don't really do it in practice. Ask 50 marketers if they talk to their users or if they think that's important. Everyone will agree with Joliene, but how many of them are actually doing it properly? You know, we have targets, in addition to our growth targets, we have targets for each team member on how many customers they should talk to. We have customer visit targets within the sales team to determine how many customers we should visit. We try to segment and make sure that we're touching all the different kinds of customers. So it's just, there's a lot of things that people know what to do. They just don't really know how to do it right. And I think that's really where you should just focus on where you can have the most impact. So if you want to understand your customers, dive deep. If you want to create value, create real value. And I think this is one of the biggest problems, is that a lot of companies think they're creating more value than they are. It's the fallacy that every founder and every employee and every person in the senior position is going to fall into. We always believe our product to be better than it is. And we always believe our competitors' products to be poorer than they are, because we're in this market, we're in it. So one of the things that we need to do is just be very honest about what is value. For example, posting a piece of content that is grammatically correct does not make it valuable. Still, a lot of people think that makes a good piece of content. It's grammatically correct, and it doesn't seem like it was spawned out by a machine or a freelancer in 10 minutes halfway around the world for $2. The truth is, good content is content that's insightful, that gives you something new. So if you're actually creating real value, then you just have to be transparent in your communications. It sounds like an oversimplification, but it is the reality. And if you try to oversell things, you will fall in the trap of people trying to call you out. I think here a lot of it comes from, if you are confident that you are creating the value, then you can communicate that openly. I think that's basically what it boils down to for me.
Nice, Ferdy. And unfortunately, we are running out of time. So I think I'm just going to do an open question for all of you guys. And this links to Jolene's Slide. You know, there was like a journey in terms of like the trauma and where our customers are in and when we are in. And there's a question here that is actually, I think it's a nice question to finish this webinar. Is are you seeing any trends right now and in terms of your specific audience behavior or / need that you need to anticipate that is going to be continuing after this pandemic? So how do you prepare, let's say, how do you prepare for what's coming, you know, and what do you think that you're doing right now is going to last and not? And as marketeers, how can we prepare for let's say the aftermath, you know? Any thoughts?
I think the most important thing is to just accept the uncertainty. I think I can't remember the exact naming that Joliene used in her slide, but there was one which was it was kind of, you know, one part was really accepting the reality of it, and the one is getting prepared for the new reality. I think a lot of companies, the biggest risk is falling in this trap of thinking, okay, we kind of know what's happening now. We have no idea what's happening. We don't know how many people are dying. We don't know how it's spread. We don't know what country's going to go on lockdown. No. We don't know if people can go immune. We don't know which industry is going to suffer. We don't know anything. So the most important thing is that you don't fall into creating these long-term strategies that are beautifully planned out that in a week or two might become irrelevant. So I think the most important thing you can do as a company is just accept that there is uncertainty, and accept that this uncertainty is probably not going to last till June, July, but probably until September, October. And the situation is, if we're lucky, going to resolve itself early next year. And we have no reason to believe otherwise. So we need to make sure that we're ready. A lot of companies at the beginning went in hiring freezes and got a lot of criticism for hiring freezes. And then two weeks later, every company in the world followed suit. It's about being able to control your world in a crisis situation. There you need flexibility.
Yeah, I could totally agree with Ferdy. I've also something more to add. I think more from a marketing perspective, what we realized is where as a marketing team where we can add value, because of course lead generation has gone down. The market is constantly fluctuating into, it's going a little bit better, it's going down again, it's going better. We don't know if there will be another peak or another outbreak. So everything is very very uncertain. So we try it now as a marketing team to see where we can add value to other teams mostly as well. So we're working a lot together with customer success to help them convey value to their customers or create content for them so that they can use to send out to their customers. So how they can use Impress in a better way, or just how they can work remotely, or how they can help their teams more efficient remotely. And so our focus within our marketing team has shifted a little bit more to be facilitating also other teams as well currently with creating content that they can actually use and focus a lot on retention, focus way more on keeping your customers in and keeping them happy and really adding value to them. And then the message, of course, we can send the message out if the market is changing, and if it becomes more stable, we can go back into the market again. But I think a really big focus should be on making sure that the customers that you currently have are content and happy and really feel value of your product.
Nice. Diogo,
Yeah, I think from my side, yeah, just adding, going back to the question, if there's any trends or anything we see that's changing and that might have a long-lasting impact. From what I've been seeing and some data as well that has been shared, is that if there's something that's going to change is how people kind of what do they value the most and how they are reassessing their priorities and their life and the way they spend their money, they spend their time, what do they give more importance to. I think that will be one of the most last-longing effects of all of this. Just all of us kind of resetting a bit and see what's important in life.
Nice.
Yeah, just the point for me, I think, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the idea of digital has just been catapulted, like digital transformations have been accelerated massively. So I think the way, even after all of this is settled down, the way people work, the way people communicate, the way people interact will become a lot more digital. I think a lot of people, a lot of companies have even started to realize, say, the potentials of remote working, the potentials of digital technologies like YouTube and Zoom and things like this. So I don't think things will ever go back to the way they were necessarily, which isn't a bad thing. But yeah, for me, it's all about digital.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke, and thank you guys so much for joining. I know how busy you are, so we really appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts with us. And thanks to everyone that is watching right now for joining us as well on a Friday afternoon. Really appreciate it. Please keep in touch. I'm sure you guys are willing to get in touch with the audience as well. So add us all on LinkedIn, ask us questions, send us emails. We are definitely trying to help each other here, share knowledge with each other, and whatever we can do to help you, please get in touch. Again, thank you so much. And yeah, we keep in touch and we see where this takes us. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Good luck,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.